Hello, this is Devin at Rapid POS. Today I'll be demonstrating the features of the newest version of our Mailchimp connector. In this version of the connector, you can access the Mailchimp interface at the bottom left part of your screen in Counterpoint by clicking Connectors, and then you will see the Mailchimp connector listed here along with any other connectors that you might be using. And then when you select Mailchimp, you're going to see 4 buttons that are here and available for your use. By clicking the Mailchimp configuration button and then pressing the forward icon, you can see exactly how your Mailchimp connector is configured. If you want to enable protected changes here, you can click this padlock icon, unlock it, make adjustments, and relock it. However, we strongly recommend consulting with Rapid before making any changes, just to ensure proper configuration. Now, let's go through the sections of the Mailchimp configuration one by one, just so that we can do a quick overview. The first one here at the top is your API key. That is unique to your connector. The last sync date is in UTC time, and that's the last run date of the connector. Next is the workgroup ID. Rapid will set up a workgroup ID of 230 in Counterpoint, which you won't need to use or ever touch. It's only used when customers are imported from Mailchimp into Counterpoint. Because each workgroup has a unique customer template, this allows users who import customers from Mailchimp into Counterpoint to use a specific Mailchimp customer template. In Mailchimp, you might consider pushing data from multiple sources, such as your Counterpoint point of sale, and then maybe also an e-commerce platform such as WooCommerce or BigCommerce or some other system. The Mailchimp store name and Mailchimp store ID, listed here, identifies the sales data that is pushed up from Counterpoint to Mailchimp as coming from Counterpoint, so that it's really clear what came from Counterpoint and what possibly came from some other integration you might have with an e-commerce platform, for example. The user ID listed here is only used when importing customers. This value should not be changed, and it is always set to the default user of CRM_MLCHMP. We leave that as is regardless of whether or not import customers is turned on. Your audience ID is also unique to you. Some users have multiple audiences in Mailchimp. The audience ID value identifies the audience that the connector is syncing data to and from. If you open Mailchimp and you click on Audience, and then you click on Settings, you're going to see your audience ID listed right here. So you'll have your audience name up here and your audience ID down here. Last here is the version. This is the version of the Counterpoint Mailchimp connector that you are using. The sales section pertains to clients who are sending sales data from Counterpoint to Mailchimp. We highly recommend using this functionality because it can really improve your segment filtering capabilities in Mailchimp. When Send Sales is enabled here with this checkbox, the connector will send posted tickets from Counterpoint to Mailchimp. You can review our client information document for a list of all the ticket fields that are sent to Mailchimp. In addition to syncing sales going forward from the time this box is checked, you can specify the number of historical days of sales data that you might want to send when the connector is first installed. For example, here we have it set to send 60 days of previous sales data when the connector is first turned on. Before we do your install, we will discuss what number of days of historical data you would like to sync. Next are the data types for sales. Due to Mailchimp's data field limitations, we have implemented a workaround to combine product category, product subcategory, and product vendor into a single data point under Mailchimp's vendor field. I will show you later in this video how you can then set a filter using the parameter of vendor contains in Mailchimp to create a segment. When selecting which type of product data to send to Mailchimp, you'll notice that you have a drop-down menu here. You can select from sending the description, the code, or not sending this value at all. For example, for product category, if you wanted to send the code instead of the description of the code, you would set it like this. Let me show you what this looks like. If we open items and we select an item here, we see that we have a category of fruit and veg. That's the category code. For subcategory, it's vegetable. That's also the subcategory code. If you wanted to see what the description would be instead, you can bring up the item category lookup, and you can see that the description is listed here as fruits and vegetables. So it's just a longer description. The item category code is limited at 10 characters. The description is limited at 30 characters. Making this choice for your configuration just depends on which is easier for you when filtering in the future. Also, if you don't want to send this data at all, you can simply just select none. So instead of having code here, you could choose none and not send category. Perhaps you want to send code for both category and subcategory, but send nothing for vendor. That's how this would be set in that case. Next is the customer section. There are just two options in this section. The first is import customers. When configured to import customers, customers that exist in Mailchimp are imported into Counterpoint. This is especially useful for integrating new customers from a website sign-up form into Counterpoint. If an email address already exists in Counterpoint and someone fills out a website sign-up form using that same email address, the imported customer data will be matched with the existing customer record. The customer record that already is in Counterpoint will just get updated. However, a potential issue arises when a customer already exists in Counterpoint without an email address, and then they go fill out the website sign-up form. Because there's no match on email address when that customer is imported into Counterpoint, it's going to create a duplicate customer record in Counterpoint. The original one without an email address will be in there, and then so will the new one that does have an email address. Of course, you can always use the customer merge functionality to merge these two customers together. But if you have a high volume, or perhaps if you're using Rapid's driver's license scan functionality, or you just really need to maintain a clean customer list, you might want to discuss with Rapid whether or not importing customers is the right functionality for you. The next field is skip merge validation. For customers who have a website sign-up form, they may have also set up some required fields in Mailchimp. For example, maybe if you're going to provide your email address on the website sign-up form, first name and phone number are also required. Historically, whatever fields were required in Mailchimp were required also for the connector. So if we were going to push up a customer from Counterpoint to Mailchimp, and phone number was a required field, but we didn't have the phone number in Counterpoint. For example, we only had email and first name. Mailchimp used to throw an error and not allow that customer record to be synced up. With their new skip merge validation functionality, however, we can check this box, and then that will allow us to push up a customer to Mailchimp even if we're missing one of the required fields in Mailchimp. For that reason, we have the skip merge validation box checked for all customers. We just set this by default. If for some reason you need this to be turned off, just let us know and we can have a conversation about it. At the bottom, we have our internal configuration settings. To manage the data sync efficiently, we have implemented limits on how much data is pushed up at a single time. If the amount of data you need to sync up exceeds these limits, it's perfectly okay. It just means that we're going to break it up into chunks. So if there is a limit of 5,000 customers to sync at one time, the connector is going to work through all 5,000 customers before trying to sync the next 5,000 customers. We have also restricted the number and the size of the log files that we retain for troubleshooting purposes. This just allows us to retain a pretty significant amount of relatively fresh log data without storing too much data that might just become a burden on your server. And then to minimize alert fatigue, alerts in Counterpoint are automatically marked as red after 3 days for the Mailchimp connector. You can still view them in the message center, but they will not automatically pop up after 3 days. So that's the review of our Mailchimp configuration options. Again, we strongly recommend consulting with Rapid before you make any changes to these, just to make sure that everything will work as expected. Now let's move on to our Mailchimp field mapping. So again, we're going to come under Connectors, Mailchimp, and open the Mailchimp field mapping here. This is best viewed in table view. If you're not seeing all of these columns when you first open it in table view, just use Column Designer to make sure that all columns are selected. Mailchimp field mapping allows you to see what data is being uploaded from Counterpoint to Mailchimp. All of the fields here under the Upload to Mailchimp are flagged, so you know they're going up to Mailchimp. And if you're importing data from Mailchimp into Counterpoint, you can also see those fields, which will be flagged here. A particular field can be flagged for upload, import, both, or neither. For clients who import customers from Mailchimp into Counterpoint, the connector will not overwrite data in Counterpoint with a blank when the retain Counterpoint value if Mailchimp is empty is enabled for that specific field. This doesn't prevent overwriting the data with other values, but it does prevent erasing data in Counterpoint when Mailchimp only has partial information. To avoid accidentally updating critical data in Counterpoint, please be sure to consult with us before you enable any import customer fields, especially if you're not familiar with this functionality. If there are fields that you would like to send to Mailchimp or import from Mailchimp and you're not seeing them listed here, we can use this field mapping to help you add rows to this table. So just let us know if you need some help with that. Also, we are able to send some calculated column queries as well, and we can provide a quote on that based on your needs. Our next button is Mark All Mailchimp Messages as Read. This controls messages in the message center. When there are unread messages or alerts, they're going to pop up for all of the users who are configured to receive them in the message group. If this is annoying, a user may click the Mark All Mailchimp Messages as Read button, and that will stop them from popping up. Messages only pop up when they are unread. Then the user can go up here to the message center, open the message center, and review all of the alerts. The last button is the Run Mailchimp Connector button. In general, it's not necessary to use this button because the connector runs on a schedule. This button is truly just for use by our programmers when they need to run the connector manually for testing. So when this button is clicked, you will see a black window will appear, looks like this, and then it will close itself out. Never close that window manually as it will stop the sync. The window will automatically always close itself when it has completed the sync. So just to reiterate, it's advisable to only use the manual sync when the task scheduler is turned off for troubleshooting purposes. Now, let's review some additional information about how the connector works. Let's open a customer record. We will use the lookup. Let's select our cottontail. You can see that this customer has an email address listed in Counterpoint, and the opt out from marketing emails box is empty. It has not been checked. So we would expect to see this customer in Mailchimp and to have them be subscribed to our list. Let's take a look here. Here's our cottontail, and you can see all of their information, and you can see that they are indeed subscribed. If we wanted to send them up to Mailchimp as unsubscribed, we could go back into Counterpoint, check the opt-out from marketing emails, save the customer record, and then we'll run the Mailchimp connector again. We will let the black box close on its own. Then we can go back here, refresh the customer record in Mailchimp, and now we can see that Cottontail is listed as unsubscribed. You can also see under the Activity tab that they have been unsubscribed via administrator action. The important thing to note here is that all customers that have an email address in Counterpoint will be pushed up to Mailchimp. Whether they are pushed up as subscribed or unsubscribed is controlled by this box, the opt-out from marketing emails. Sometimes when customers are synced up to Mailchimp, they encounter an error. So if a customer is not syncing up to Mailchimp, we can check their sync status. Let's open up the customer record, and here we see this column for Mailchimp stat. This Mailchimp stat can be a lot of different numbers. Let's take a look here at what each one means. So a status of 0 means that the customer has already been synced up to Mailchimp, and we have several in 0 here. If something about the customer has changed, then it will enter a sync status of 1. So for example, if we wanted to select Cottontail and opt them back in, we'll click Save. And now if we reopen this, we will see that they have a Mailchimp stat of 1, which, as you can read here, means that they will be added to the sync queue on the next run of the connector. If the customer has a sync status of 2, the customer is in the active sync queue. This usually happens when the connector is actually running. So it's pretty rare to see customers in a status of 2, but sometimes you'll catch one just as they're syncing. If a customer has a sync status of 5, such as these two customers down here, it means that they have an invalid email address as determined by Mailchimp. Counterpoint doesn't check for email validity, but Mailchimp will return an error if they determine that the email address is invalid. And if a customer has a sync status of 9, it means that they encountered an error when syncing, and you should take a look at that customer record. You might want to change something about it and try to resync it. If the customer remains in a sync status of 9 and you're not sure why, you can reach out to Rapid and we will help you troubleshoot it. If you don't see this Mailchimp status in your customer lookup, you can also just right-click in this top bar and click Column Designer, and then make sure that you choose this column so that it's always visible to you. If you like having that there, you might want to click on Options, Save As, and set it as your default view. In addition to viewing the customer sync status in the lookup, you can also filter to display a list of customers with just a specific Mailchimp status. So you can use the Customize option to customize your filter, add Mailchimp stat, and for example, if we just want to see our Mailchimp customers that have a status of 5, the ones that are in an error, we can click OK. Now we can choose to move forward through them. If you feel like you have a kind of long list here, I like to go to Table View. This also makes them rather easy to edit. So if perhaps some staff have accidentally keyed in email addresses wrong, you can make some quick changes here. This one's pretty easy. We can tell right away that the period is missing before the .com. And here both the period is missing And Gmail is spelled wrong. So we can fix that and click enter. And now we don't have any customers that match our filter. Neither of them have a status of 5 anymore, and that's because they are now in the queue to be synced. So we can come here and check, and indeed they have been set to 1. Next, let's get into the Mailchimp platform and do a little work in there. I want to show you how you can use the sales data to create customer segments in Mailchimp. For a customer, such as Cottontail, who is listed here, you can see previous purchases that they have made on their individual profile. We can also refresh this customer and see that they have been resubscribed since we checked that box in Counterpoint a few minutes ago for them. And if you click on your audience here and click on any one of your customers, you'll see any previous purchases they've made. However, the really helpful way to use this information is to set up a segment. So when you log into Mailchimp, navigate to Audience, then click on Segments, and from here you can use the Create Segment button. As you can see, I already have some segments set up over here, but we're going to create a new one. We get to use this Select or Search a Filter option. Keep in mind that the main pieces of data that we have pushed up about products that have been purchased are all going to be down here in this e-commerce activities section, and that's because Mailchimp doesn't separate between e-commerce and point of sale activity. Think of this more as all store or transaction activity. And remember that we are taking everything from category, subcategory, and vendor and putting it into this vendor purchased field. So we have to adjust the parameter for vendor purchase to contains, and then we have to key in our match. I know that I had this configured to send the category description. So I'm going to key in vegetables, and then I'm going to click Review Segment. And here I get 4 emails that will be added to this segment. If you're happy with this segment, then you can come up here and click Use Segment. Or if you want to add additional filters and parameters, you can click back, click Add Filter. Let's say you want to set it to, and birthday month is May. You can do that. Maybe you want to send it to anyone who has purchased vegetables, their birthday month is May, and they're in a certain customer category. So we could come down here, choose category, and we want them to be in the retail customer category. We want these set to and for both, and now we'll click Review Segment. That limits us to just 2 customers now. They have birthdays in May, they're in the category of retail, and they have had a purchase that contained vegetables. If we're happy with that, we can use this segment. We can set the name to something like Vegetables May Retail. And now we have that list. Now that we have a segment here, let's add a new customer in Counterpoint and see if we can get them to show up on this segment. We're going to open Counterpoint. Let's go right into Touchscreen. Let's add a brand new customer. And this may look different if you don't have a customer on the fly form. So we've added the customer here. And now let's make sure that we get something in the vegetables category and complete that transaction. Now, our customer on the fly form didn't have a birthday on it, so if we want to make sure that this customer has a birthday in the month of May, we can look them up. We can do some additional editing here. And because our Mailchimp connector only pushes up posted tickets, we're going to have to post that drawer really quickly. And once the drawer is posted, then we can come back and run our Mailchimp connector. Again, I'm having to do that just because I don't have the automated sync turned on right now in our development environment. Now we can go into Mailchimp and let's check and see if we have a new audience member. And we do. Peter Rabbit has synced up. We can also see that they have a birthday of May 8th. And they have one transaction for baby carrots. They're also subscribed, and we can see some other information about them as well. Now let's see if Peter Rabbit, if he ended up in our segment. And he did. So any customer with those parameters would continue to get added to that very specific segment. You might want to set up ones that are a little more broad than that. But in general, this shows you the power of the sales data in Mailchimp. So this is the end of our tour. Thank you so much for watching our introduction to Rapid's Counterpoint to Mailchimp connector today. For clients who are looking for even more information on this connector, we do have a client information guide that we can send to you. And if you have any questions beyond that, feel free to reach out. We are always happy to help. So cheers to smarter email marketing campaigns using Rapid's Mailchimp connector. Thanks.